Greetings and welcome to the Richard Dolan Show, where every week we fight the good fight. The UAP hearing is happening in Congress on the morning of Wednesday, November 13th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be, I think, rather interesting. I have a guest to talk about that hearing now. And this is someone who I've had on this channel a number of times before. He's always been very popular. He is a wealth of information. And let me just bring him on here. This is Allan Lavigne. Allan is honestly, he's an OG in the field of UFO research. This man was a protege of Jim and Coral Lorenzen back in the 1970s. If you don't know who the Lorenzens were, they were two of the top dogs in the UFO field for many, many years. They ran the organization called APRO. And Allan was working with them back then. He's gone on to do many things in his career. But here's the thing about Allan Lavigne. He has got his ears on the ground. He's got his sources. He is completely on top of the UFO UAP situation. And we're going to talk about the hearings. Allan, welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be back with you.
It's always a pleasure. I think you've been on, this might be the fifth appearance you've done on this channel. It's really great to have you here. So I'm always amazed every time that we talk, you have information coming from every different source. I'm wondering, how do you do this? I don't know how you do it. I'm not even going to ask. But let's talk about the hearing so that people can kind of get an overview. We got 4 witnesses officially scheduled to talk about UAP. They are Lou Elizondo, everyone knows him. Admiral Tim Gallaudet. Many people know Admiral Tim Gallaudet. There is Michael Schellenberger, who is an investigative journalist who has been making some waves in the last few years with this field. And there is Mike Gold, a very interesting man, and I hope that we get to talk about him as well. What are your thoughts about the hearing? Do you have any expectations? I mean, you've got a lot to say about this. We were just chatting before we went on. What are your thoughts about the hearing?
Yeah, everybody's hoping for some significant reveals this Wednesday. We need to have the general public catch up. A lot has gone on the last 3 or 4 years that the general public is not frosty on. They've missed large parts because they have lives and they're not involved in this as many members, researchers, investigators, and community members are. But what they're trying to bring everybody up to steam, and these witnesses hopefully have some reveals that can help do that. But in regards to the government in general, much of this is old news to them. This investigation into legacy programs and the UAP phenomenon actually began shortly after the New York Times article was released, and Harry Reid's involvement, and the UAP task force was given mandate to go in and investigate this. Primary to that investigation, the lead investigator was, of course, David Grush. Now, people think David Grush is some lone ranger out there by himself. No, David Grush had an entire office and had investigators, and they went out and, did their ground game, and they're the ones that rounded up these 40 witnesses that everyone's heard about. And everyone is chomping at the bit, hey, bring the 40 witnesses. Well, these 40 witnesses have testified already to the Select Intelligence Committee for both the Senate and Congress, the Armed Services Committee, and the Intelligence Community IG and his staff. So there's 21 members, both Senate and Congressional side, that are part of the Select Intelligence Committee. I don't know how many are on the Armed Services, but all of them, their staffers, their lawyers, their stenographers, everybody were in these meetings over the course of almost 3 years. And they were presented the type of evidence that everybody in the general public would like to see, which is high-res satellite video, signal data, metamaterials, photographs, firsthand testimony of people within the legacy program. and who heads the programs, where the programs are located, where the caches are. So it's not a mystery to probably as many as 200 people within the government what is going on. That's what allowed Schumer, who's a member of the Gang of Eight, to write the UAP legislation that he did. And although everybody laments, oh, they tore that apart and they, oh, woe is us. That was simply a shot across the bow. And Schumer said that in his first interview after the first time the legislation failed, because all those things like eminent domain, you don't need to write a new law to exercise eminent domain. You cannot harbor radioactive materials without registering it with the federal government. Okay, if you find a chunk of plutonium out in the middle of the road, you can't take it home and just keep it. People dressed in black with guns are going to show up at your house and take that plutonium. You just cannot keep it. And you don't need a new legislation to do that. The same with this talk of, they have a contract. No, they don't have a contract. This was not properly bid out. It was done illegally. The funds they used were embezzled. There is no protection for these people that ran these rogue operations. What they hope to do with the legislation is send a message without tipping their hand how much they know and who they know is involved, so they don't scatter to the winds. It's not just that they may hide materials or craft or whatever. These guys may literally leave the country, so they don't want to tip their hand, but they want to send this message to the people involved. We know who you are, and we can act on that at any time. And what we might do is just kick your door down and take your toys.
Are you thinking that the hearings then last a year and a half ago, which featured David Grush and David Fravor and Ryan Graves? That, I mean, it almost sounds like you thinking that was like a wet smoke and mirrors, that all of this stuff was already known behind the scenes, or am I misinterpreting?
No, it definitely was already known behind the scenes, but Congress has a mandated duty to share, to their constituents what's going on.
Yeah.
They work for us, and as much as they could share, they did. Hey, this is what's afoot, and things could be changing rapidly. I really, one of the things I shared with you offline, not today, but in correspondence, is that, people talk about, oh, these guys, they're concerned about breaking their NDAs and they might get sued or they might get fired. Well, it's, there's really more to it than that. I mean, if someone worked on UFOs, an actual flying saucer from another planet, I don't think there'd be any end of job opportunities, even if they did get fired. What they're really concerned about is their physical safety. As I've shared many times before, the government doesn't care if you believe in UFOs. They don't care if you believe in aliens or abductions or if they're living here on this planet or not. What they care about is losing control of what the technology, the advantages it brings, and the trouble that might come with it. Were witnesses silenced? And it does look like they were. Grush shared that, and I'm convinced, that they did. And people have a serious concern, not that they're just going to lose their job, but they're going to lose their life if they come forward.
Before we went on, can we talk about the gentleman that we were just talking about before we went on? I think we can. That's
yes,
Mark McCandlish.
Yes. What people aren't
We're going to get to the hearing, but let's just a little bit about Mark McCandlish. So Mark was a brilliant aerospace illustrator, maybe the best in the world. He was certainly among the best in the business. And he knew a tremendous amount about UFOs. He did the famous drawing or sketch of the ARV, the flux liner. People can look that up. It's everywhere out on the web. And he died in April of 2021 of what was reported a suicide. But you pointed out something else to me about Mark.
Yes, Mark met with Rubio. He was initially supposed to be one of Grush's 40 hands-on witnesses, and he spoke to Rubio personally. He was only a month from testifying before the Senate Intelligence Committees. He had just called his girlfriend. His girlfriend owns a animal rescue farm, and he was going over there to help her with some stuff. And he never showed up, and a welfare check revealed, he'd fallen backward on a bullet, basically. That's the euphemism I use. And his family vehemently denies that he ever had any depression or was ever suicidal or anything of that nature. And
I'll mention one thing to support what you are saying. A colleague of mine did some correspondence with Mark during those last year or two, which I was able to see. And Mark was absolutely terrified of getting on the wrong side with these types of people. That is the folks running the technology program, running the cover-up, we could say.
And he had beyond just the flux liner drawings, he had other supporting physical evidence. Sorensen, his friend who reported the air show reveal, drew an F-117 fighter in this same canopy where they saw the flux liner. He also sketched what was believed to be Project Aurora, dubbed at that time Flaming Pumpkin Seed because of the shape of the craft. And those drawings still exist, but there was no way, no one knew about the F-117 at the time, and there was no way he would have been able to draw such an accurate illustration of the F-117 if Sorensen hadn't seen it. He had to have seen it. And if he saw that, it really lends credibility to the fact that he saw the flux liners.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So,
and there's other at that point. Yeah. Late 1980s.
And there's other supporting documentation along that line that Sorensen shared with McCandish. So it speaks to me that this is specifically what they're hiding, is the ARV technology and flux liner. Now, if you may recall, earlier this summer, there was a former Australian intelligence officer who dug up some documents related to Kennedy, and you're familiar with these documents that shared Kennedy's desire to share with Russia UFO files. And this Australian intelligence officer went further to document to show that Allan Dulles had met subsequent to that letter with Kennedy shortly after. And one of the things I postulate is, and I've always felt that associating the assassination with anything UFO related is kind of a conspiracy step too far. But then again, what if it was that they were concerned that Kennedy, if he discovered this flux liner rogue program and the technology, would have desired to share that with the Soviets. And hey, that's something they would protect. Now, if you go back and look, and I know you're a consummate historian, if you go back and look at all the names that were associated at that time, you've got everybody that's some still around, and Lewis talked about even his dad was involved tangentially in this whole thing back during these years when Kennedy was assassinated. Lou's dad was involved with the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of smoke. Was there fire? Was this something that the CIA, who's linked with squelching the Bigelow project, the Bigelow transfer, are they protecting a rogue operation involving flux liner technology or anti-gravity technology? And is the concern that this is going to get out into others' hands? Are they willing to kill over it? Yeah, I think they probably would.
Okay, well, let's good. That's a good segue to talk about the current hearing that's about to happen on this Wednesday.
Yeah.
So Yeah, Grush has said people have died. He implied that they were killed over this secret. He wasn't the first one to kind of put a hint like that out. There's been rumors for many, many years that this has been a dangerous subject. You yourself, I think you believe that this is worth killing over by the secret keepers. So, what do you think are there genuine concerns about whether it's these 4 witnesses or any others that may come to testify before Congress on this matter? Is this a genuine matter for them to be afraid? I mean, nothing seems to have happened in retrospect to David Grush or Fravor or Graves when they testified. Is there reason
Oh
to
no,
think that there's anything?
Grush was threatened. Grush, and he said this. Oh,
I meant in the aftermath. I mean, he's still alive, yes, but
yeah, he's still alive.
Go for it. He was threatened.
Yeah,
he
they
was
came
afraid.
into his house and left a
Yeah.
note threatening him and his wife, saying basically, "We can get you anytime."
Yeah.
So that they, that's not a hoax or someone just throwing out a threat online. They actually entered his home. And
Schellenberger, who's testifying, he's talked along these lines.
Yeah,
and very dangerous possibilities here.
Yeah, well, think of this. What do you think they would do to you if you were going to share, plans for the latest nuclear trigger, or the latest stealth spy plane plans if you were going to give them to some foreign agent? What do you think? You think they're going to go like, oh, no, that's okay. We're going to sue you or arrest you. No, they'll kill you. I mean,
well, think about the importance of what you're saying, though, because, a lot of people out in this world still believe that UFOs or UAP are not really an important issue. There's really nothing to this. It's not real national security. Or if it is, it has nothing to do with flying saucers. It's something else. It's a cover, a smokescreen. There's a lot of people who do not take this seriously. But what you are saying and what many other people are saying in terms of personal safety obviously speaks otherwise, that this is quite serious. And there's a reality there.
Oh, absolutely. We just talked about McCandish, but there's also Amy Estridge, who also died under mysterious circumstances this summer. She was just speaking to an former MI6 officer. 4 hours later, she was dead. And her dad also claimed to work on the legacy programs. She was a brilliant, scientist and was very much involved and very vocal that she was going to go to the media and that she was going to speak out. And she was, again, suicide was, in a locked room. And people go, well, she was in a locked room. How couldn't it have been suicide? I guarantee you that's exactly how they would find someone. And it can be done. It absolutely can be done. And it's not even hard. But yes, and when I first saw the list of witnesses, I go like, there are more people, involved in this, and I seriously believe that there are some that are being held back for their own protection, and that will be, surprise witnesses on Wednesday that haven't been made public.
You think that's possible?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Maybe at least one, maybe two. And they're, I'm sure they're being well protected right now. They might not, I don't know where they are or what they're doing, but I'm sure that there's more than this, or could be.
I'm not saying that you definitely know. Can I ask you, though, hypothetically, if you may have known something or thought you heard something about any of these possible witnesses?
In fact, I know.
Not holding you to it. What are you able to say anything else about what they might know or what they might be able to contribute?
I have a name. I can't share the name, but I know the person is, an insider and has important information. And if they allow them to testify, it would be significant. I don't know how
would
much.
You rate the significance as compared to the other 4 witnesses? We still need to talk about
equally as high, if not higher.
Yeah.
One thing I can share with you for the membership and stuff, because everyone has been so like flummoxed over the Schellenberger's reveal of the name Immaculate Constellation. And what is it something religious or no? It's actually quite clever. What Immaculate Constellation refers to is actually two different terms. Immaculate refers to the pristine nature of the materials within that program, the high-res videos, satellite video, the chain of custody, the quality of the eyewitnesses, the materials involved, the analysis involved. It is immaculate. It is smoking gun, no doubt about it, evidence. So that's why the first word immaculate is used. Constellation refers to, it's a string of programs that paints a picture of the UAP UFO phenomenon. So you have pristine materials and information within a constellation of programs. And as I was sharing with you offline, that's where this term Zodiac arose as a legacy, connected with the legacy program, because Zodiac refers to the entire panoply or the entire group of programs that house the subject. So you have Immaculate Constellation, and within that is Zodiac, which are all the programs.
So Immaculate Constellation is like an umbrella organization for, is that right?
An umbrella name. Okay. It's like saying NASA. Okay. You got NASA, and under NASA, you have the X-plane program. You have, Saturn and all these other different programs. Immaculate Constellation has its perfect material and information, and it's all these programs, and in that is Zodiac, and Zodiac.
Then maybe other programs in addition to Zodiac that may go into different directions. Zodiac presumably would be a materials acquisition program.
Some may be legacy engineering, some may be signals data, some may be just witness investigation or testimony, some may be archival, but it's that all these programs under Immaculate Constellation make up Zodiac.
It sounds like the mother lode for pretty much everything.
And that's why they're willing to kill over it.
Yeah. I think I was pointing out, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but, and I don't know if this is the same thing that I'm about to refer to, but in the 1970s, the great UFO researcher, Leonard Stringfield, pulling up a lot of different leads back then relating to crash retrievals and bodies and programs. And one Air Force person said to him that there is this is in the 70s, keep in mind, a computer program that had essentially, the way he put it, all the data, but it was all digitized. It was all on computer in the 70s. He said, that's got everything. He says, if you, what did he say? Get that dump file, I think is what he called it. Then you've got everything. And I've wondered, because that seemed to have been headquartered out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And the impression that I've gotten when what little has come out with Immaculate Constellation is that it could be connected to Wright-Pat as well. But what do you think about that?
Actually, because this comes up all the time, people always associate Area 51 with UFOs and stuff. Area 51, Paradise Lake, it was originally called Groom Lake, came about in 1953. But actually, that within the Nellis range and the atomic energy range there, actually Area 51 goes back to 1942. Much older. And this is interesting because it was in 1941, you had the Gerardo Bay incident, which supposedly was a recovery. Well, in 1942, and this is corroborated by a magazine article in one of the Las Vegas periodicals, Indian Springs, now not Indian Springs, the air base, but Indian Springs, which was part of the reservation of the Nellis Range, they decided to they removed everybody except for the hospital personnel. Oh, well, let me share where I got this. It's, Wendell Stevens. In 1979, he was doing a lecture, and this old timer came up to him after the lecture and said, hey, I have information that you probably don't know. And this was long before Bob Lazar. And he says, and he told him the story of what happened at Indian Springs and this basically huge retrofit. What they did is they left the hospital there at Indian Springs and all the hospital personnel, but there were 2 runways, large runways. They tore those runways up, removed all the hangars and everything, and they dug, at least in the periodical, they say subterranean buildings, bunkers, stuff like that. They weren't very specific. Spent $3 million and then replaced everything after that. Put the hangars back, built 2 new runways. And this is long before that Lear exposed Area 51 or Groom Lake or anything. Nobody had even considered that, but all of that stuff was in place. So it's very possible, I believe, that as early as 42, they were building a place where they could hide the Gerardo crash and possibly the Italian ship that they got after the war from Mussolini. So, and that's verified. That periodical is on the web, and you can read it. They spent $3 million, which would be like $40 million today, to build this subterranean thing under Indian Springs, which is just 5 miles from where S4 is, or where Bob claims S4 is today. So Wright-Patterson may have been a clearing house. They may have checked things, and then they go take them over to Indian Springs and stick them underground.
That's where the real action is. Yeah.
So,
thank you for that clarification. Somehow this is connected to Wright-Pat, it seems to me.
Well, yeah,
maybe it's a clearinghouse, or it was a database center. I don't know.
I forget who I'd heard this from, but my understanding is that the secret files that Danny Sheehan saw are housed at Wright-Patterson in a library there. I hate to share something that I forget where I got it from, but that's what I heard. Was that those files. And it's interesting, just before I left APRO in 1980, and at that time, Jim had about 2 years previous had gotten a microfiche machine and was taking all the APRO files and converting them to microfiche. And at that time, that was the coolest thing because, there was no laptop computers or anything. We go, oh, wow, we're really cooking now. We've got the latest technology. And I when Danny shared that, he was looking through microfiche, I go like, I wonder if any of that was APRO microfiche stuff. I've shared this before with you, and I've shared it with other people before. And I was disappointed. One of the people that, and I don't want to call him out because I don't want to embarrass him. One of the people involved in this hearing coming up, my name came up and APRO came up, and they go, what's APRO? And I go, how in the world can you not know what APRO is and be involved in this subject?
Is one of the members of Congress?
I don't want to call them out because as soon as
there's a lot they don't know.
Yeah. And I just go like, how can you not know that? This was
newsflash. A lot of people don't know.
Yeah, this was supposedly the only private organization that was operating on a U.S. airbase for the first from 1952 to 1960, they were operating out of Holloman Air Force Base, out of the press office there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know how widespread that was known.
Yeah.
When I was researching them way back years ago, I did not know that.
Yeah. Coral headed the press office. I even have a picture of them in the press office putting together the APRO newsletter. They could not have possibly operated there without the sanction of the U.S. Air Force. Absolutely could not have done it. You can't just.
We're going all over the place and I want to keep following up because I know that they were monitored by CIA. They were very angry about that. That really stuck in their craw. So there's a lot of interesting relationships going on there. But I want to talk about the hearing.
Sure.
And I want to ask you, So we know the four officially announced witnesses are. You're indicating there may be a surprise witness, maybe two surprise witnesses. Fair enough. What are you expecting to be the matters of most dramatic import for this hearing? Are you expecting anything interesting to come out of it, or are you expecting nothing interesting to come out of it? If interesting, what do you think might come out of it?
I'll reveal that the legacy programs do exist, and that
Wait, say that again.
materials
Reveal that the legacy programs
do exist. That there
do
are
exist.
legacy programs, and some are being are still active and in the hands.
And let's finish the thought. Do legacy programs to study
to back
and
engineer,
reverse engineer alien technology.
To reverse engineer technologies. I believe they're alien technologies. I couldn't prove that, but yeah. I mean,
that may come out. I mean, I could imagine Lou Elizondo saying such a thing. I could imagine it would be really something if Mike Gold were to say something along those lines. He's in a position, I think, to be able to say it. I don't know if Schellenberger were to say it. He's, you could just say, well, that's hearsay because he's not even a government employee. Tim Gallaudet, I know Tim, but I don't know what he really knows on this. So if Lou were to say it, people could just say, he could have his own credibility problems with his detractors anyway. So if it comes out that there's a legacy program, who would be the best person to be able to authenticate that of the witnesses?
The former Lockheed employee. I mean, he's
Gold, who was a Bigelow Aerospace employee. Let's talk about Mike Gold a little bit. I'm very interested in him. I'm interested in Mike Gold, and I will just say, I didn't really know a lot about him until.
He's a true unknown. That's what's interesting. What was he bringing to the table? Because
he has a lot. I think he's got a lot.
I'm pretty. I would. I mean, if I was picking witnesses, I can think of the ones that I would choose who I know have worked, within the aerospace industry and stuff, and I saw a meme or quote from Chris Mellon from 2016 go like, hey, I was involved in budgeting for this and I never saw anything. Well, it was 2016. That was before Grush did his investigation. Since then, Chris has said, hey, he alluded to, we had people inside that were working inside these legacy programs. Lukoski has said outright, hey, we opened a UFO and we got inside it. Yeah. He won't say anything more, but I mean, well, that's a huge reveal. I would
think some of these guys could have been called, frankly, as witnesses. But with Mike Gold, so just for people who do not know, I did a short video. I talked a little bit about him. It's on this channel. You can check it out. But essentially, so he was most discussed as a member of the NASA UAP team there, the NASA's UAP research team. That's interesting, but to me, that's not even remotely the most interesting thing about him. And I really hope that the members of Congress don't waste everyone's time by focusing on his relationship with NASA, because Mike Gold worked for Robert Bigelow from 2003 to 2016. And I don't know exactly everything that he did there, but I know he knows a lot about aerospace. He's an expert in that and in the technology. He worked with Bigelow for all those years. During that time, this came out in Chris Sharp's article, but we were just talking, and you mentioned before we went on, George Knapp covered this about over a year ago. And David Grush did talk about this too, actually, I think on Rogan and maybe elsewhere. The idea that Bigelow Aerospace, under the OSAP program, under the Defense Intelligence Agency, was seeking to acquire alien tech being held by Lockheed Martin. And that this, in fact, was happening. The whole thing, the transfer was happening, and there was intervention by a senior officer at CIA.
Yes, the 21 or 22 million for the OSAP program was earmarked to transfer the materials from Lockheed to Bigelow. That's in the public realm. It's not top secret. George has talked about it. Jeremy's talked about it. Grush has talked about it.
Yeah.
They were supposed to transfer it, but Bigelow had to meet the security standards to warehouse it. That even, I believe, was in the online. What's the name of that? He had the Times article, but he also had an article online about it. And they spoke about the upgraded security that Bigelow needed to acquire. Bigelow could not pay for it out of the OSAP fund. He had to use his own money. He spent $2 million to bring up the security. The inspector said, no, you didn't make it. And they were denying the transfer. And he went to Harry Reid. Harry Reid insisted they give him a second chance. He spent more money. He passed the security inspection, but then the CIA stepped in and said, no, we're not going to give it to you. And that ended it. And then we go into the Grush investigation, which began under what I refer to as a black swan event of the COVID lockdown. It was during this lockdown that you have all these select intelligence committee members being briefed by Grush's witnesses. This is when apparently a lot of the heads of these programs were at home, obeying the COVID restrictions, and their second in charge weren't really minding the store like they should have. And so this information gets out and they inform all of Congress. And as I've said many times, you don't steal from Congress. It's like stealing from the mob. They will not forget and they will not forgive. They want that money back. They want control, and they're not going to stop till they get it. I've shared this too. As much as people lament the legislation, the UAP legislation not going through, they have the legislation to exercise eminent domain. You cannot hide or harbor nuclear materials that aren't registered with the federal government. It's illegal. You just kick a door down and go get it. They went after Rosewood with Gilbert guitar because they were harboring rosewood that wasn't bought from India. It was bought from Madagascar. I forget what the kerfuffle was, but they sent FBI SWAT team in to get that. You think they're not going to go after a UFO? Are you kidding me? Of course they would.
No, I hear you. Yeah. The revelation about this, the failed transfer from Lockheed Martin to Bigelow Aerospace, it sounds like it was going to happen. It got blocked by CIA. It was Glenn Gaffney, I think his name was, the senior executive. Chris Sharp writes about him. Chris said he has multiple sources. It's a great article. I'll link for it below. People can check it out. But what this does, and what George Knapp's work on this also really speaks to the fact that what was the OSAP program really about? This was very, very fuzzy and hazy for years. It's like, what were they actually doing? Even when Lou wrote about it in Imminent, you don't really get this sense of what we're talking about here. The sense that this is for Robert Bigelow. This is all the funding for Bigelow to get access to Lockheed's UAP tech. And you got to wonder why Lockheed would be willing to give it up. I know you've got some ideas in that. We should talk. But
yeah,
$22 million was allocated for that, but then it failed.
Well, they didn't want to get caught with the goods. I mean, Lockheed's going like, hey,
why? So did Lockheed know something was up, and they're like, this is becoming too hot to handle?
Absolutely. Remember, this isn't the information had already come out in the New York Times that Bigelow was going to be in receipt of something. So this was already in play.
That's right.
And Lockheed going like, we've done as much as we can. We don't want to get caught. We've milked this for that. Let's get rid of it. It's not doing us any good.
We've got all of our experiments. We've got all our records. We got all of our notes. We're good to go.
Yeah. If Sorensen, who shared with McCandish about the ARV, is true, they've already got the technology. These are basically museum relics and paperweights on their desks. They don't need this stuff. And my understanding is that they don't have, that at least Lockheed doesn't have a full craft, that these are meta materials, pieces of a craft. Now that could be just, that's what they're willing to give up and they're hiding some stuff, but that was my understanding. But what happened, unfortunately, with OSAP, they're getting ready to shift the materials, and I think it's Well, then they end up with the 22 million, nothing to do with it. So that's when they paid for these papers, which have never been released yet. 50 some
No,
odd.
they're still on a server called the JWIX server.
Yeah.
I understand they're very highly searched on that server, classified military server.
Yeah, that's where the money went, and because they're going, okay, we got this money, we got to do something with it, so we'll put it towards this.
Yeah, Bigelow went to Hal Puthoff and said, "Can you shop out these ideas? Find some people. Let's get some information on advanced technology that might be relevant to the UFO phenomenon."
And you have to understand people like Hal Puthoff, who has come out and been on the record saying that he was invited to, I believe it was in the late 90s, to Washington, D.C., to a meeting to discuss disclosure with heads of industry and the military. And
yes,
at the end, they go like, no, it's basically going to kick our rice bowl over. It'll be, it'll hurt the stock market. It'll hurt government. It's going to hurt the public consciousness. We're just not going to do it.
Yeah,
and you have to figure that's part of it too. It's not just protecting technology, just the uncertainty, just to say we're not alone and we have materials from another planet. That sets up uncertainty in the stock market. If you think of all the times that you've heard, oh, the stock market fell because of uncertainty, whether it's what's the Fed going to do with rate hikes or whatever. Tell them that there might be anti-gravity technology out there that's being hidden from them. Oh my God. They're going to lose their minds. Hey, is the oil worth anything anymore? Was this?
Yeah, this is the real problem. It's like people will say, well, we're on a petroleum dominated paradigm, which is true. Yeah. But it's what will the global financial system do with the knowledge that there is something that can replace it and improve upon it within a certain number of years, it can all be switched out. So that's
just the material science. Yeah, just the material sciences. Because I think the energy stuff is premature. People talk about free energy. That's another subject altogether. But just the material
science. You're right. Metamaterials and the like.
How would that affect manufacturing and industry, the electronics, chip manufacturing, and everything? And just the fact that they don't know how it'll affect it, it will affect the stock market.
Right.
Because
So I'm going to go back.
I don't know what to invest in.
I'm going to go back to the hearing, and we were talking about, you were indicating the existence of legacy programs that are in existence. So, but I'm still wondering how that can be stated to members of Congress and to the public and to the world in a way that people are going to be affected by. That's going to be powerful.
Well, it's been out there.
How can they say it? What kind of receipts are they going to have on this to be able to make that a powerful statement or believable?
Well, I know what they've had. I mean, they've had documented evidence, documents from the program analysis, to photographs and stuff. Are they going to show any of that? I don't know. But they have the receipts, you might say, to establish, yes, I was there. This is what I did. And this is proof that I was there. That's not out of it's not like no one's ever said that before. I forget his name, that there was an individual, I believe he worked with Lockheed, who claimed to have be an engineer who created UFO simulators to train pilots. He came out in the late 1990s, and he was well vetted and documented, was certainly an engineer at, I believe it was Lockheed. You talking
about Boyd Bushman?
It could be. I forgot the name.
I think he'd been at Lockheed.
Yeah. So that it's not like no one's ever come up. There was. So the evidence is there. It's just never taken center stage. You have right now with the internet. You didn't have that in the 90s. You can everyone's going to be watching this hearing, and so for millions and millions of people, this will be the first time they've even heard the term legacy program.
Well, I'm really hoping that Mike Gold gets asked this. My opinion is he could be, from the four that are there, he could be the star witness potentially. Like if the right questions are asked of him, and if he is, I mean, why not just bring Robert Bigelow up there? I mean, I don't know why they don't, or some of these other people, but Mike Gold could be someone who has very useful information on this. What do you think about Schellenberger, and what do you think he might be able to say relating to Immaculate Constellation? Are you on top of any of that? What do you think will happen with that?
Well, if there are other witnesses that are connected to the Immaculate Constellation program, he can vouch for them. He can certainly extrapolate on what he learned and where he learned it from, and maybe put together a timeline and stuff. I know he has admitted that he hasn't shared everything that he learned. Right. So there's more to be revealed. In any case, it's, and we've talked about this before. What constitutes proof to the general public? Is it someone bringing a dead alien body before the mic or something, or is it flying a craft around the Capitol Hill? What is proof? What I've heard myself over decades, to me, would stand up in any court. I mean, you're not going to get much more than, hey, I was there, here's my paycheck, this is who I worked with, this is when I worked there, and Joe over here say next to me, he talked to me then, blah blah. That's, I mean, what there's not a great deal that you can physically bring into here, other than possibly videos. It's possible they might show some Immaculate Constellation videos. I'm under the impression that one may be shown. I don't know which one.
One video. I'm not going to hold you to this, of course.
No,
but
again, it's just, that's what I heard from a source who is very close, that's one of the things they would like to do. Whether or not they're going to be able to do it and get through all the hoops and be able to show it, I don't know.
I'm just trying to ask myself, what would such a video have on it? Like a craft, a being, something like that.
I don't know.
Something presumably that would be compelling.
I suspect, I have my suspicions, and it could be why they have Tim there, of what this video might be, that he might be able to verify that is an authentic, video. But again, I don't want to say, because I'm not certain. This is a very murky world. For years and years and years, people go, oh, this guy was wrong, or he made a mistake, and so you're a liar. Oh my God, this is one of the biggest kept secrets on the entire planet. And getting into it is so tough. Just in regular intelligence and even investigative reporting, it's so hard. Okay, is this person telling me the truth? What are their receipts? Where have they been? Who do they know? Do they have another agenda? It's murky. And so many times over the years, it looked like it was going to pop, and it didn't. I've shared, on your podcast about the pots that we were so close to disclosure back in the late 70s with the Carter administration. We were right on the verge of it, and it didn't happen. And now nobody knows about it. Everyone goes like, oh, I never heard of that. Well, yeah, because it didn't happen. So
we did talk about that.
Yeah. We talked about it a number of times.
Fascinating.
And now, though, you can't hide it right now because of the internet, and everyone has cameras, and everyone has microphones, and everyone's searching, and everyone's going through the net. They're using AI. They're looking things up. You can't hide it like you used to hide it. And people screw up. You said, well, I hope they don't ask about NASA. Really? No. NASA I know NASA has X-15 film of, what we refer to now as 4K video of UFOs flying by the X-15 in its first maiden flight. That's well known.
Oh, hell, if they ask about that kind of stuff with NASA, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And
I'm just afraid that they were going to ask questions about, NASA's study from a couple of years ago was all about how to proceed
Yeah,
with a
those guys were
scientific study of UAP. And if that's what they're going to focus on, I'm like,
no,
no.
those guys were in the know. They were just like Arrow, or they were the dog and pony show. But what's his name? The British, they referred to him as a hacker, but he wasn't really a hacker.
Gary McKinnon.
Gary McKinnon. Ask about that stuff. Ask about Solar Warden. I mean, it's when the NRO first became known in the late 1990s. That's when we first learned of NASA's. People say, "Oh, NASA doesn't have a secret space program." Absolutely, they do. Yeah. They fielded Corona, Hexagon, Gambit, which were all spy satellite programs in the early 60s under the auspices of space exploration. They called it the monkey house. They put a monkey above, in the capsule, but underneath it, they had Corona, which was the first spy satellite that was built here down in Palo Alto. And that was secret until the 1990s. And at that time, that was launched in 1960. The satellite photographs from that were as good as Google Earth is today. But then it was only in 77 when digital telemetry became a thing that they didn't need to take that, recover the camera and then develop it.
Right. Yeah, they weren't using film.
And even to this day, the videos you see online from NASA are dumbed down. They're depixelated so that under the auspices, well, we don't want foreign actors to know how good our cameras are. The foreign actors probably know better about the resolution of those cameras than anybody in the general public. They're damn good. And I remember in my day job when they went after bin Laden, you can't believe how good it was. Like you were sitting in his friggin' yard looking at him. I mean, you could see his friggin' shadow. I mean, there was no doubt that was bin Laden, and that was from a satellite.
So there's the question: if our satellites are that good. I mean, Chris Mellon actually wrote an article to this effect a few years ago, saying, "Look, we've got this massive satellite presence out there, incredible cameras, incredible resolution. Where's the data here? It's obviously there."
And we have, and this has been known for ages, we have deep space radar that can tell you what's coming and going from way past the moon. So if anything is going into orbit, we know that I think there's like 50,000 pieces of space junk out there, or not 50,000, but 5,000 pieces of space junk. Some things no bigger than, an eye bolt flying around at 15,000 miles an hour. And we know
there's
where
a very interesting case. I wrote about it in one of my books from the early 80s. Woman who worked at Nellis Air Force Base without authorization got access to NORAD document. It was actually shown to her without proper authorization that talked about deep space objects coming into Earth orbit.
Yeah.
And it wrecked her career, and it really wrecked her life for a while. Yeah. But she's for real. And I wrote about that. So they've had the ability to track that. So we've got less than 10 minutes. I want you to have the opportunity to offer final thoughts here, because I don't want to miss anything that you feel is important that people will want to know for this hearing.
Well, this is the beginning. For those in the community, you may say, well, I've already heard this before. You have to remember 99% of the planet hasn't heard this before. They have no idea. They don't think this is a thing. They're not even to the point where they believe even UFOs are real. It's not taboo to talk about it now, but they're not even there yet. And you even have this on the internet. You have podcasts. You're still trying to prove UFOs are real, or this video is real, or that photograph's real. Exactly. We're beyond that. Yeah. But the general public's not. So this is a first step, and it's not so much a controlled disclosure, but you have to begin the conversation someplace. And the conversation, which we hope will begin, is that Yes, we have recovered materials, origins. We don't know where they come from, but we have them. Grush is legit. The 40 witnesses are legit. There is a suspicion this is non-human intelligence technology. That's what it looks like is we're going to get the reveal on this Wednesday. For the masses, that's going to be huge, but it's only the beginning. I don't want people to go like, oh my God, they didn't bring an alien. It's not proof for, oh, well, sorry. I mean, we see that in criminal trials all the time. Well, I don't believe the guy was really guilty, unless they see a video of it, they're not convinced. Testimony.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about the idea that a hearing should be bringing in heads of agencies, people, the higher up bureaucrats running these departments to kind of grill them on what they know and so forth?
I believe that's coming, but you have to set the groundwork. Somebody has to come in there and say, I worked for so-and-so, and I worked in this department. Then you can go out and go, okay, bring that guy in. Let's talk to him. Subpoena his documents. People don't realize the intelligence community, IG, is still actively investigating not just Grush's complaint about the release of his medical files and his retaliation. They're still investigating the 40 witnesses. You got 40 people that have to be vetted, background, followed up, who they talked to, where they worked. It's all going to be documented. You got to go into the budgets, subpoena records, who was paid what, when were they paid. You got to talk to accountants. You got to get bank records. Try and get a bank record related to an aerospace company. They're going to hem and haw and hold it up. But that's what you need as proof to say, this guy stole money. This guy paid that guy to kill this guy. These are the things that need to come in, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a huge, huge investigation. It's going to be, when it all unravels, unfolds, it's going to be the biggest scandal we've ever known. It will change the planet. It really will. Because
let me ask you this. All good points. So are we entitled to think that these hearings may be part of an ongoing thing? When we had the hearing a year and a half ago, I don't know that it was really a done deal that there were going to be more hearings. I mean, it took a year and a half between July of 2023 and where we are now at the end of 2024. And frankly, the fact that we have the hearings at this time came to me as a bit of a surprise that it was actually going to happen at all. So if we have a hearing now, do you think it's more likely than not that we're expected to follow up? I know the Senate's going to do something in the next week. Maybe we can talk about that before that happens. But do you think that the House is likely to continue with this? Do you have any?
Oh, absolutely. There's too much at stake. And we have a new administration. They're more friendly to the idea of releasing the UFO files, whatever there might be out there, and other files that may be related. So they're much more amenable to it. I was happy to hear that there were certain members of the old administration that wouldn't be invited back because I believe they were standing in the way.
Trump just said he's not bringing Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo onto his.
Yeah. I mean, and think about that. Who's Nikki Haley worked for? Boeing. And who's Mike Pompeo? He was head of the CIA. And everyone knows he's the one that held up the Kennedy files.
That's right.
And as I shared, we talked about this offline. Was there a nexus between Kennedy and this reveal? I don't, I've always felt that was a conspiracy theory too far, but if they were concerned that he might, because he was getting really friendly with the Russians and
there's the famous letter by Kennedy from November 11th, 1963. I don't think that letter has ever been debunked. I think that seems like a legitimate letter, frankly. And in that, he is talking about to the CIA a directive to essentially order them to begin collaborating with the Soviet Union on certain intelligence matters relating to UFOs.
And we know now from White House records that Allen Dulles met with him the following day after that memo went out. And
On November
that's
12th.
yeah. So it's
I think it lines up very well.
If they were concerned that if they were hiding ARV program and technology from Kennedy, he was already pissed off that they hid so much about the Bay of Pigs stuff from him.
Oh yeah.
He might have just gone, rabid coming into a second term and go like, hell, these guys have been lying to me. You have this technology. You're not telling me we're spending all this money on a space program and you got friggin' flying saucers. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that with everything that might have not been the principal reason, but it might have been the last straw.
Oh yeah. I think his murder was like, I liken it to an Agatha Christie murder mystery where like everyone had a motive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in one of a Murder on the Orient Express, everyone did it too. And
yeah.
I've often wondered like that might've been Kennedy's situation. He had made himself an enemy on every level imaginable.
Yeah. And there's always been suspicion that he might have shared this with his liaisons, that he knew more about, the UFO stuff that,
one of which was named Marilyn Monroe.
Exactly. And what's her name? The columnist who also died of mysterious.
Yeah, Dorothy Kilgallen.
Kilgallen, who was said she was going to release a diary of Marilyn's or something, and she ends up dead.
Yeah, that's right. She knew Marilyn Monroe. It's a good catch. She was the last person to interview Jack Ruby before he died. Yep. And he said they'd injected me with cancer. Kennedy, that's a whole other thing we could get into. Kennedy's assassination was one of the greatest crimes because they not only murdered the president in broad daylight on TV in front of everyone, but then they murdered everyone else connected to it who could have talked.
And you see this quote unquote turbo cancer, this turbo cancer type stuff.
Yeah.
It goes hand in hand with all this stuff. Like Senator Schiff, who wanted to investigate Roswell. Suddenly
representative of Congress, Stephen Schiff.
Yeah, Stephen Schiff.
Oh man, let's just talk about this for a second. Stephen Schiff, almost 30 years ago now. No, 30 years ago, 1994, 93, 94, 95. He was up by himself against the Air Force on this whole matter on Roswell. Roswell was his district, and he was trying to get to the bottom of it. And the Air Force absolutely was so obstructionist to him. And then he finally gets a report. He finds out that the Roswell records were destroyed from the end of 1946 through, I think, the beginning of 1949. No reason given. Illegally.
Yeah.
And then that's when the Air Force gives their Project Mogul balloon explanation and all of that. And then a couple of years later, he's dead of a rapid skin cancer that just took him down.
Yeah, and
very suspicious.
Again, you have a lot of the principles. You have a lot of the principles that were involved with the Kennedy assassination, like David Ferry, who was working on cancer research, along with Oswald's girlfriend, who was tasked to.
There's a great book called Dr. Mary's Monkeys.
Yeah.
Which I think, is that the one by Peter Janney, who I've spoken to him. No, he did Mary's Mosaic. That's another one.
And we're talking
really good books on this.
What we're talking about is weaponization of the SV40 virus, or it's part of a DNA code, which arose from the polio, actually an accident within the polio vaccine when they attempted to produce it at a higher rate. And they use kidney cells from the green monkey, the African green monkey, which you're maybe familiar with. For Fauci talk about that was the origin for AIDS, was the African green monkey. Well, they used the kidney cells to propagate the polio vaccine and just determine that, hey, they had this SV40 promoter that caused cancer within that. And we saw a huge wave of cancer. And then when the DNA became a thing and we were able to investigate it, They investigate. Oh my God, this is why the SV40 gene is a promoter of cancer. And they go, well, can we get it out of this strain? And Mary said, no, we can't get it out. And they said, oh, well, maybe we can use it and weaponize it. And it was pulled by the Defense Department to be biologically used as a weapon. And that came up in the Church Committee, Senate investigations of the CIA in the 70s.
Yeah.
That they were using, cancer technology as a bioweapon. So, and again, all these people.
These are the people we're dealing with. These. Yeah. So when this is a good place to kind of wrap this up. These UAP hearing, the hearing that we're having this week. You have people like Grush talking about how dangerous this is. Lives are at stake. We're dealing with people who kill. That's what it really sounds like. That's what we're dealing with. This is not just some ordinary hearing where we're just going to get the truth on UFOs and have disclosure and all of that. That we're dealing with, as you say, this is a long process. It's like opening up the most intricate mafia investigation imaginable with all of these links. Remember the story of Danny Castellero, who was murdered, suicided back in the 90s when he was investigating matters related to this, the Inslaw Promise investigation, and it made a lot of information on that. But you start getting into this and you end up being suicided or something else bad happens to you. And
well, you go all the way back.
You
go all the way back to the Bobby Kennedy mob investigations, and you go like, this is serious stuff. And it took a long time to technically bring the mob, to a controllable thing. They're certainly not gone, but to get them in control. And that took years. And it wasn't easy. And a lot of people did die. Well, now you're dealing with the military elite.
We need a new Joe Valachi. I think, wasn't he the one who got that out there?
Who turned. This is for all the marbles. And it will change the world as we know it. It may not change it tomorrow, but we're on that. It can't be pulled back now. Too much has come out. It's a matter of, can we manage it? Can we not? No, you can't manage it. I've never seen any. They talk about we want controlled disclosure. It's not possible. As soon as you say we're not alone, the next question is going to be, okay, who are they? What do you know? How do you know it? Where are the craft? Exactly. There's going to be all these other questions. You can't just say we're not alone.
Totally agree.
It can't stop there.
Yeah, the idea of control, that's a conceit that is just not realistic. I don't think there's going to be.
That's just mental gymnastics. Yeah. They wish, but just like the mob being unraveled, once you have someone break their silence, that's it.
My feeling is, those people who are trying to delay this, I think that's just their strategy. Delay as long as possible, and then that's it. Delay as long as you can.
It's like when you're about to get in an accident, you slam on the brakes. Yeah. You're going to keep skidding, but you're not going to take your foot off the brake. Yeah. And they've got their foot on the brake, but a collision is still right ahead.
Good point. Well said. All right. Well, let's wrap it up here, Allan. This was really enlightening. I think this is actually a great preamble to the hearing. And for all I know, there may be more data bomb drops in this than we will hear at the hearing, for all I know. It all depends on the questions that the members of Congress ask. So we will just have to wait and see. But that will be Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be live streaming it here with commentary on my channel. If you're interested, come here, check it out.
The whole world is watching.
It's going. What's that?
The whole world is watching.
Indeed. I think it'll be very interesting. So again, Allan Lavigne, thank you so very much. I'd like to have you back so we can talk about maybe what happens at the Senate.
I'd love to.
Yeah, very good. And thank you everyone for listening. Really appreciate your support. You know what to do. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel. Doesn't cost you anything. Share the video if you think it's any good. Go to my website, Richard Dolan Members, if you like what I do. This is the kind of stuff I do on the website all the time. Allan is there in force on that website. Everyone knows and loves him there. So Allan Lavigne,
Awesome.
thank you. Oh, and by the way, Allan Lavigne is my impeccable illustrator for the 3-volume USO history that is essentially been completed. Volume 1, I think it's done. We're going to put that out pretty soon, and volumes 2 and 3 will be following very shortly. But Allan, your work on that has been amazing, and the world will get to see that very soon as well. So
it's been my honor. It really has been my honor.
It's been a delight and treasure working with you as well. Anyway, thank you everyone for being here. I will catch you all again soon. Meantime, let's keep fighting the good fight. Later.